Welcome to Microsoft Defender for Endpoint from Zero to Hero, Module 5.1, Migration from Third-Party Solution. Initially in this module, I want to explain what is the process when doing a migration from any AV to Defender for Endpoint. Part of that is to understand the AV modes. I'm talking about active and passive. And then I want to explore a couple of ideas when is the right time for you to change between passive to active to minimize any possible security gaps. Part of the whole configuration is for you to set the exclusions from the third-party AV and from the Defender for Endpoint as well. And then finally, of course, I will show how to do all the steps in a real demo. Anyway, let's get ready and dive into it. Okay, let's get started. Step number one is to have a clear understanding about the migration process. You can find some additional information from Microsoft website on the video description below. A couple of important steps are, the first one is to make sure you have all the device fully updated when it comes to the Microsoft patches and OS and so on. This is to minimize any possible problem you might get when doing the onboarding. Probably I don't need to tell you, make sure your team is already familiar and knows how to manage and how to detect the alerts and so on from Defender for Endpoint. And then, of course, because Defender for Endpoint needs to communicate with Microsoft data centers in order to get information and to send telemetry as well. And then you need to make sure all the communication between the devices in Microsoft data centers are fine. This can be done via firewall rules, or if you are using proxy, you need to, of course, to implement a proxy configuration. Anyway, these are kind of generic things. Now talking specifically about AV, step number one is to enable Defender antivirus as passive. On the next slide, I will give a better understanding about active and passive. And to avoid to have two AVs, the third-party AV and Microsoft Defender for Endpoint AV trying to fight each other if both are active, step number one is your current AV is already running as active and we are about to onboard Defender for Endpoint as passive. It means in a passive mode, the Defender for Endpoint will not take any measure in terms of blocking some possible malicious files or other software. Okay, that's one of the steps. Second, of course, when you do the onboarding, you want to make sure all the AV configuration is already deployed in the right way on every single device. Those deployment can be done via MEM, can be done via Configuration Manager, Grow Policy, or so on. Please watch my additional videos for you to understand how to do that. Okay, if I pause for a moment here, the communication between the devices and the Microsoft data centers to reach the Defender for Endpoint services is, let's say, done. I have configured my Defender for Endpoint to run as, or Defender AV to run as passive, and I have all the configuration in terms of frequency for the updates, when the Defender for Endpoint should run a full scan or quick scan, what are the exclusions, all of those configurations, they are already deployed. Okay, that's so far so good. Now finally is the step when we do the onboarding. Again, the onboarding can be done via so many different ways. On this lab, I will run just a quick local script to do the onboarding. But in a mass onboarding, you can use Grow Policy, you can use a MEM, you can use System Center, and there are different ways. Anyway, at this stage, after doing the onboarding, we actually have now two AVs running on the same device at the same time. I still have my AV, could be Symantec, could be McAfee, it really doesn't matter. It is still there running as active. And then I now just onboarded my second AV, in this case Defender for Endpoint, as passive. The AV is running as a passive, but on the kind of backstage, the Defender for Endpoint is already doing all the machine assessment when it comes to the threat and vulnerability, and all the information Defender for Endpoint is collecting, it starts sending straight away to Microsoft data centers, and we call that as the telemetry. Okay, now the next big question is, when should you move to the next stage, where we will uninstall the third-party AV and then finally make the Defender for Endpoint as active? There are different guidelines from Microsoft. If you want to make sure all the telemetry, the initial telemetry, is fully synced before removing the third-party AV, and then Microsoft has some best practices. It means it can take up to 24 hours in order to collect all the information regarding the, especially the threat and vulnerability, and have that information fully populated into the Microsoft data center. It means between this stage and here, where we do the onboarding and then finally we uninstall the third-party AV and switch the Defender as active, you could do on the next day. You could wait 12 hours, or you could, if you really want to play safe and make sure all the telemetry is fully updated, you could wait up to 24 hours. Now I have a better slide to explain. Now the next big question you need to consider is, okay, should we first uninstall my current AV and then change as active, or should I first change as active to make Defender for Endpoint as active and then actually uninstall the third-party AV? I have a better slides to explain about that. If you really don't want any possible security gap, and then the idea is to have first Defender as active, and then it means for a while I will have my third-party AV and Defender for Endpoint as active, and then I will uninstall my third-party AV, and then finally Defender will be the kind of master AV on this machine. But anyway, don't worry too much, I have a better slide coming up in a few seconds. Okay, that's kind of, the process. Now, before we move to decide when is the right time for you to do the switch between passive and active, let me just quickly explore the different modes. When I'm saying the Defender for Endpoint is active, it means it takes full responsibility to keep the device protected against any malicious code, any malicious software, and so on. And actually, this is the mode we really want the Defender for Endpoint to be after removing the third-party solution. Microsoft introduced the passive mode exactly to avoid any potential, I would say fight, but any potential conflict between the different AVs, and to avoid any possible spike on the CPU utilization as well. This is why the idea is, as I quickly already explained, on board as a passive, and then it means the other AVs still being the master in terms of doing the protection, and then we switch to active, and then we remove the Defender as passive. We remove the third-party AV, okay, later on. Okay, that will be the best practice from Microsoft. There is a bit of catch in here. There is the behavior from Windows 11 and Windows 10 is a bit different when it comes to servers 2012, 2016, and 2019. This is all based on my real-life experience. When it comes to Windows 10 and Windows 11, the active-passive should happen automatically. It means by the time you do the onboarding, the Defender will detect a third-party AV, and it will onboard as a passive to avoid any conflict automatically. And then by the time you remove the third-party AV, Defender for Endpoint will detect the missing AV, and then eventually will do the switch over to active automatically. And we really should not be, let's say, doing that manually, because the system will detect automatically. This is, by the time I'm recording this video. On servers 2012, 2016, and 2019, I didn't see that behavior. It means I had to force via registry key or grow policy, I had to force the servers as passive, do the onboarding, then I waited the telemetry to be fully sync, and then when the time was right, I manually, again via registry or via grow policy, I had to change the defender from passive to active, and then eventually I removed the third-party AV. Okay, again, things can change from Microsoft, but one more time, by the time I'm recording this video, on Windows 10 and Windows 11, the switch between passive and active should be done automatically, and on servers, we need to do that manually. Okay, now the kind of golden question, and very important for you to decide and make some tests as well on your project, is when is the right time for you to switch the defender, especially on servers, from passive to active if you need to do that manually. Okay, I want to share 3 options in here. Okay, I'm calling option number 1. The idea is onboard as passive, and then wait for all the AV definitions, platform updates as well, and wait for the telemetry to be fully synced. Okay, now I will change to active. It means I still have the third-party AV, but I'm changing my defender for endpoint to active, and then I will remove my third-party AV. And depends the AV, you might need to do a restart if needed, and then I restart my server. By the time the server comes back again, now the third-party AV is gone, and Defender for Endpoint is my only solution for that. A couple of things we need to consider are the following. First, this is kind of the best practice from Microsoft web page. Why? Because there is no gap. It means for a short period of time, I will have 2 AVs running as active, and then by the time I remove the third-party AV, Defender for Endpoint is already active on that device. This is why I can say there is no really any security gap. Part of the consideration is we might have a spike on the CPU utilization because we have 2 AVs running as active at the same time. To avoid any headache, what you really must do is to add the AVs as exclusions to each other. It means go to your third-party AV and then make sure you add all the Defender for Endpoint processes into the exclusion list, and then do the same. Go to the Defender for Endpoint and add all the processes from the third-party AV as exclusions on Defender for Endpoint. That will minimize any kind of big conflict between them. Anyway, that was the first option I wanted to explore. The second one is there is a tiny difference here I made into the process. As you can see, I will do in here, same story, onboard as passive, wait for all the AV definitions, platform updates, and telemetry to be synced, and then we remove the third-party AV, and straight away after that, we change to active, and then finally we restart the server. This tiny change in here, the advantage for that is it will minimize any kind of spike on the CPU, because I really don't have the 2 AVs running for a long period of time. The idea is to change to active and then restart straight away. By the time the server comes alive after the restart, the third-party AV is fully gone and Defender take advantage from there. Again, it minimizes the security gap. You know, I don't have any gap at all in terms of, I don't have a long gap on security, but because I'm removing the AV and as soon as possible, I'm changing the Defender for Endpoint as active, the security gap is, I wouldn't say is not zero, but is reduced. And in this case, because I will have the 2 AVs for a short period of time working together, and then you need to make sure the exclusions are all added, as I already explained, into the third-party AV and added into the Defender for Endpoint as well. Anyway, that's the second option. The third one, That's a little bit more complicated and I wouldn't implement on my project. But anyway, if there is any requirement, any headaches in terms of CPU utilization, and you really don't want to add the Defender, the third-party AV as an exclusion into Defender for Endpoint and vice versa, that could be the next option. What we will do is remove the AV from the current device, restart the device, and then as soon as possible try to do the onboarding as active. Okay, and then in this case, yeah, there is no really conflict between the two AVs because they won't be running at the same time on those devices. The only problem in here I'm really worried is if you remove the third-party AV and then do the restart, and somehow there is a problem, there is a delay or something happens on the onboarding process, it means you will end up having maybe dozens or hundreds of servers or workstations, if you are doing that in a bulk, having those devices not protected because the third-party AV is gone, and let's say the onboarding didn't work, something went wrong into the process. But anyway, that could be another option you could consider when designing the best solution in terms of when is the right time for you to switch the Defender for Endpoint to active and remove the third-party AV from the machine. Anyway, let's keep moving. The next step in here is if you are looking to understand, okay, but what are actually the exclusions I need to add into my current AV to avoid by the time you try to do the Defender for Endpoint onboarding, your current AV could not allow because it could see as a threat. What you need to do is have a look on the link. Let me quickly click in here to show how it works, and please find this link on the video description below. If you go in here, configure device proxy and internet connectivity. Okay, I am not interested on that right now. Just scroll the whole page down, and then somewhere in here, yeah, that's the place where you can find to download the files. Okay, Microsoft Defender for Endpoint URLs. But actually the same file contains this table. If you just click in here, and now hopefully we can see. Yeah, this file contains some key information. The first one is what are the URLs you need to open to allow the devices to connect to Microsoft Data Center. And from there, the same Excel file, you can find all the processes as well. If you click on Microsoft Defender processes, just click in there. Okay, that's the place. Here are exactly what are the processes you should exclude from your third-party AV to avoid the third-party AV to detect Defender for Endpoint as malicious or to avoid any conflicts. Okay, you need to do that. Okay, now let me go back to my slide. This is done. The next thing you might get a bit of headache is the following. When we are dealing with registry key or grow policy, there is a setting, a Defender setting called turn off Defender. Some of the third-party AV, when you install, like McAfee, Symantec, or it doesn't matter. Some of them, when you do the installation, they actually go to the registry key and they disable Defender for Endpoint to avoid any conflict with the third-party AV. This is why you, before doing any work in terms of doing the migration, what you need to do is check on your servers, check on your devices, grow policy or MEM to see if this setting is not coming, okay, from somewhere that will disable the AV, and then you might have some headache when doing the onboarding. Let me show how you can do that. If you are dealing with servers and grow policy, this is my domain controller, I believe. I just want to show how to find that setting. If you go to Tools via Grow Policy and then Grow Policy Management, I have a couple of Grow Policies in here. The first one is one of them actually, is the MDE General Settings. Right click, Edit, and then let me just quickly maximize in here. Okay, if I go to Policies, Administrative Templates, and then from here, Defender, Microsoft Defender, and as you can see, the setting is here. Okay, turn off Microsoft Defender antivirus. If the option is enable, it means yes, Defender for Endpoint will be off. I want to do the opposite. I want to make sure Defender for Endpoint runs on those devices without any problem. This is why I'm setting here manually, turn off Microsoft Defender antivirus as disable. I'm doing kind of the opposite of this option, what is saying, to make sure Defender can run. And then when I do the onboarding will start Defender, get the definitions, and so on. Okay, that's an important setting I want to share before you start doing the onboarding to avoid any possible headache. Anyway, this is what I wanted to share in this first part, just to make sure you are familiar with the onboarding process and the migration process. Now let's dive into my demo where I will present it step by step when doing the migration. Let's go into it. Okay, now let me show all the steps to migrate to Defender for Endpoint from a Windows 10 device. Step number 1 is to make sure I have the exclusions for Defender for Endpoint added into my third-party AV. For this lab, I'm using Avast as an AV solution. Okay, let's do it. If I go to my Avast console, here on the top menu, and then settings, and then in here exceptions, if I click in there, yeah, there you go. Just to buy a bit of time, I already added the whole folder, Windows Defender Advanced Threat Protection, and C Program Files Windows Defender. As best practice, we really should be adding only the processes, not the whole folder. But to buy a bit of time, I decided to add the whole folder. Okay, step number 1 is sorted. Now I need to do the same to check if my third-party AV has been added as exclusion into my Defender settings. I can do that via Grow Policy or MEM or Configuration Manager and so on. I've done that already. Let me show how I can double check. If I open up here a PowerShell session from here, and then the best command I can use is get MP preference. Okay, yeah, get MP preference, just hit enter, and if I go up, yeah, there you go, here is the place, exclusion path, and then I did the same. I added C, Program Files, Avast Software, and then Avast. Same story, I really should be adding only the processes, not the entire folder, but to get a bit of time, I just added the whole folder. Okay, that's absolutely done. So far, so good. Yeah, now is the time where I can dive and do the onboarding. Again, the onboarding, probably you have watched already my additional videos. I can do the onboarding via Grow Policy, MEM, Configuration Manager, or I can just run a manual script. This is what I'm going to do now. If I go to, let me just double check the folder. Yeah, local script. And then I have here the onboarding file and the offboarding as well. To do the onboarding, I just need to run the Windows Defender ATP local onboarding script. Yeah, that's pretty much it. And then hit enter. Let me confirm. Yes. And then hopefully everything will be fine. I have, in this case now, the onboarding is starting the Defender service before it was as disabled. Yeah, so far so good. Successfully onboarded machine. In a few seconds I will show the onboarding into the portal. Usually it takes, based on my experience, anything from 20 to 30 minutes maximum, and then this machine should be showed into the portal. Okay, that's good. Just to show the name, if I type host name, okay, yeah, later on I will check on the portal if a device called Windows 10 23 has been added. Okay, now this is, let me just go back to here. Okay, the onboarding is done, and now on the background all the telemetry has already started. Now the system will check for any missing patch, all the threat and vulnerability information, if there is any missing patch, if there is any vulnerability available on this device. But anyway, I don't want to wait for that. Now the next step is really to uninstall my third-party AV, and then I will restart my device, and then finally do the final check. Just want to make sure the Defender for Endpoint, the Defender service is running, and then I will go to the portal to make sure the device has been registered into the portal as well. Okay, yeah, let's go straight to, I can do, if I go to, oops, just need to type again. Okay, let me go to add and remove programs, and the next step is to uninstall my third-party AV. Yeah, there you go. Here's this Avast free antivirus. Yeah, usually it takes a good few minutes in order for the uninstall to finish. And then just to save a bit of your time, I will pause the video in a few seconds and we will come back when the uninstall is completed. Okay, let me push the button. Probably I need to fill out a bit of information in here. Okay, yeah, now the uninstall is kicking off. I will uninstall. And then, of course, if you're doing that in a large organization, we really want to automate the whole installation and the uninstall as well. But in here, just for the purpose of this demo, I will do manually. Okay, as I said, now it's going to take a good few minutes in order for the installation to finish. And let me pause the video to buy a bit of time. Now my device has restarted, my third-party AV is gone, and I just want to double check if Defender for Endpoint is running well. Okay, one thing I can do is if I just quickly open service, I want to make sure Defender is up and running, and then here if I go under M, and then yeah, there is the place, Microsoft Defender Antivirus Service, as you can see, is running. And then Microsoft Defender Antivirus Network Inspection Service is running as well. Anyway, that's a good news. If I want to double check if the Defender for Endpoint is running as active or passive, there are a couple of ways. If I want to double check all the settings from Defender, I can quickly go to regedit. Okay, if I go to the register editor, click in there. And then because I was checking before, the key actually is computer, H key local machine, and then go to software, Microsoft Windows Defender. And then from here you can check a couple of things. One of them is passive. As you can see, passive mode is 0. It means Defender is running as active. Okay? Anyway, that's pretty much done. Now the last step I want to check is if I go to my, let me just close this window here. If I go to my portal in here, yeah, please remember, if you are kind of new, go to security.microsoft.com and then in there click on devices, and then I should be able to see my device called Windows 10-23 fully registered. I might see 2 or 3 entries because I was testing this device before. But yeah, there you go. As you can see, there are 2 entries, Windows 10-23 and Windows 10-23, because I was playing with this device before, but this is the most, the last one. If I click on the device, of course, now it's really too early for me to try to have a look on all the telemetry and try to find what are the software, what is the software inventory. If I try to find some discover vulnerabilities, the information is not yet available, and that takes a few hours or usually maximum 24 hours for us to have all the information. Another place we can check if my device is running fully updated in terms of AV definitions and platform, and if I want to check the status if the device is active or passive, is in here. But as I just said, because the device is kind of new, it's going to take a while for the information to be available from here. Anyway, this is what I want to show in terms of how you can migrate from a third-party AV to Defender for Endpoint in a Windows 10 device. Now let me show how we can migrate to Defender for Endpoint as Server 2016. Just as a reference, the device I'm about to onboard is called Server 2016-07. Okay, let's get started. Step number one, I just want to show there is a AV install on my system. For this demo, I'm using an AV called Total AV, and here is fully running, fully updated, and my device is protected using this third-party AV. Okay, step number two, I want to check from the Defender point of view. I have added my third-party AV processes and folders into my Defender exclusions. To do that, let me just dive quickly into my PowerShell, and then from here get MP preference. There are multiple ways to check. One of them, probably the quickest way, is get MP preference. Hit enter. Now if I go up, yeah, that's the place. If I highlight here exclusion path, and then I add it just by a bit of time, C program files, Total AV is here. I have some other exclusions as well, but right now the most important is the Total AV. Okay, that's absolutely done. Now, as I told you before on this recording, when it comes to Server 2016, the switch between active and passive doesn't happen automatically. And then we need to do that via registry. Of course, we can always push as well via grow policy or mem. There are two ways in here. I could force via registry, or because in a few minutes I'm going to onboard this device using the helper script, I can force the onboarding as a passive as well. Okay, I want to show both ways. To buy a bit of time, again, I have created a reg file in here. If I double click on the file, let me confirm. Okay, I'm sure I want to run this reg file. Yes, and then the file is done. Now let me show what this file has done. If I go to reg edit, and then in here, and I want to show where is the place if you want to go manually and force as passive. Basically, from the reg edit, you need to go to HKey local machine, and then dive into software, and then policies, Microsoft, and then finally Windows Advanced Threat Protection. And then in here, let me just zoom this thing here. Yeah, there you go. Here is the key I need to add, Force Defender Passive Mode, and then in here as number one. It means right now when I'm about to onboard my device into Defender for Endpoint, Defender will run as passive. After removing the third-party AV, and then I need to come back in here again and change from 1 to 0. Okay, there you go. That step is completed as well. Now, let me onboard this device using the helper script. If you are not familiar about helper script, please make sure you watch my video module 4.4, where I explain all the steps in order to use the helper script to onboard your device. Okay, now I need to type this whole line, install.ps1, and then I want to install as a passive. In part of the installation, I want to do the auto onboarding. Okay, let me just copy this whole line, and then if I go back to my PowerShell, I'm already here into the folder where I have some key files. One of them is the MD4WS MSI. This is the client I need to install on Server 2012 and 2016. I have the the Windows Defender ATP onboarding script to onboard into Defender for Endpoint. And another one, very important, is the update platform.exe. As the name suggests, this is the platform update for Defender for Endpoint. And finally, I have the install, that is the script that will install the client, will do the onboarding, and do the platform update in a single shot. Okay, let me try to run this script. If I just hit, just took the wrong way. Let me just copy again from here. Let me just copy this whole line. Copy. Now it should work well. Ctrl V. Yeah, that's right. And then let me run. Okay, let me confirm. And then, yeah, now it's going to take a few minutes in order for this helper script to do all those tasks: install the client, do the onboarding, and then update the platform as well. Of course, I could be running here the installation, the onboarding via the other methods like Grow Policy or MEM or even System Center. For this demo, I decided to use the helper. Okay, let me just to, yeah, okay, we'll force as a passive. Yeah, so far no red means, good news. If I just go back to here, yeah, after the installation, and then I want to check if, okay, I just need to confirm in here the installation. Yeah, just next install. Okay, yeah, looking good. And then after the installation, I just want to jump into the services. I want to make sure the Defender service is running, and then I can check if the registry key is still as passive. When completing that, the next step is to uninstall my third-party AV. And then, because I want to minimize the time where the two AVs are running as passive, and then straight away after after when I uninstall the third-party AV, of course I can't forget to do that. I really want to force the Defender to become active, and then I will restart my system, and after the restart everything should be ready to go. The third-party AV will be gone, and Defender for Endpoint will be my security solution running as active. Okay, let me just go back in here. Is it still installing? Okay, let me do something. Let me now pause the video just to, I don't want you to spend time waiting. Let me pause the video and then I will come back when the installation is complete. Okay, as you can see now, the installation has completed. Let me just follow my script in here. Okay, now after the onboarding, I want to check if the Defender service is running and if it's running as passive. And then finally, I will be able to uninstall my third-party AV and then force as active and so on. Okay, to do that, let me quickly check from here. Let me open the services, click in there. And then from server 2016 and Windows 10, the name is different. Now I need to go under Windows. And then from here, yeah, as you can see, I have Windows Defender service and is running, and it has been set as automatic. Okay, so far so good. Now the next step is, let me just double check if the Defender is running as passive as I set from the registry. To do that, the best command is get mp computer, oops, sorry for the typo, get mp computer, yeah, get mp computer status. If I hit enter, very important command, and here there are a couple of things I can check. First of all, I can check if the engine is updated. I can check if the platform is updated. By the time I'm recording this video is 4.18 something. That looks good. And very important, the AV mode. As you can see, the AV mode is running as EDR block mode. EDR block mode means passive. Okay, when I change to active, and then in here we will see the mode as normal. Okay, normal means active and EDR block mode means passive. Okay, that's done and is behaving the way I'm expecting. Okay, this is done. Okay, I'm happy with that. Now it's time for us to get rid of the third-party AV solution, and then I will change to active. Okay, let me just close this thing here now, and let me go to program and files, or I can go to default programs, and then from here, yeah, now I can see the apps and features. And then I need to find, yeah, there you go. This is my third-party AV. Let me uninstall this guy. Click on uninstall. Of course, if you're running that on hundreds, dozens of hundreds or thousands of devices, we really need to automate the process. But for my lab, it's fine. Okay, let me just click on uninstall, and then probably I need to just confirm a few times. And then very important, as soon the uninstall finished, I need to change to active, because I don't want to restart my device not changing my Defender to active, because I don't want to end up having Defender in passive and not having any other AV solution. Okay, it might now take a few minutes to uninstall this AV. Let me pause the video again and I will come back when the installation is done. Okay, as you can see, the installation from my third-party AV now has completed, and before push the button to restart the device, let me go back to my registry key and change the registry to active. I want to force my Defender for Endpoint to be active. Okay, yeah, to buy a bit of time, same story, I have another reg file here to force as active. Let me just double click, run this file, click on yes, click on OK, and now let me just double check to play safe, reg edit, let me go there and check one more time if the registry is fine. Yeah, okay, yeah, as you can see, now Force Defender passive mode is 0. Let me just zoom. Yeah, is 0, and then it means my Defender is already running as active. And just before I move to the next phase, yeah, here I got another information. This is to kind of double check the onboarding has been completed on this device as well. If you can remember, a few minutes ago we didn't have this information, now is here. Okay, so far so good. Now finally I can restart this device, and then after the restart, my Windows, in this case my server 2016, will come back as no third-party AV there anymore, and Defender should be running as the only security software and running as active. Okay, let me just log on. Let me maximize here. Okay, that's fine. Now the best thing to do is double click in here. Just let me run PowerShell as administrator. Click in there, click OK. Yeah, probably I don't need to check the Defender service because I'm sure it's running. Now let me get MP computer status. It might take a couple of seconds, but anyway, let me try. And then from here, if I check, yeah, so far so good. As you can see, the running mode now was changed from EDR block mode to normal. As I told you before, normal in this case means Defender for Endpoint is running on this device as active. Okay, that's pretty much it. Now let me just, the last bit I want to show is, let me dive into the MDE portal and to double check if this device is registered in there. Just to show the name, if I go to host name, yeah, please remember this device name is server 2016-07. It usually, as I told you before, it takes between 10 to 30 minutes to have the devices available into the portal. Let me see how things are at the moment. If I go here, okay, if you are new, please remember you need to go to security.microsoft.com, and then on the left, click on devices, and then I should be able to see all my registered or my onboarded devices into this tenant. And I'm looking for server 2016-07. Yeah, there you go. And yeah, it's looking really good. Here's my device, server 2016-07 is fully active, and I can see, yeah, it's fully onboarded as well. As I told you before, now of course it's going to take a while in order for us to have all the telemetry available from here. It can take up to a few hours or 24 hours, and after a while, usually takes a few hours, we can see in here as well the device health status, where I can see last full scan, last quick scan, platform update, what's the version, the AV definition as well, and if this device, Defender for Endpoint, is running as active or passive. Anyway, that concludes this lab where I showed all the steps in order to migrate Defender for Endpoint from a third-party solution. Now more than 20 hours have passed since I onboarded those two devices, and I want to show now the result here on the MDE portal. When I'm looking at the server 2016-07, if I go down, yeah, it looks good. I haven't run any full scan or quick scan so far. This is why it's not there. But the good news is when it comes to the security, intelligence, engine, and platform is all green, all fully updated. And very important as well, the Defender antivirus mode is running as active. That's exactly the way I configured that server. When I click on the incidents and alerts, that's a good news. So far, there is no major thing happening on that server. If I click on the timeline, here is the place where I can see absolutely everything that is happening on that device in regards to any software, any registry key change, and so on. As you can see, fully updated. And if I click on security recommendations, if I click in there, now I can see any kind of lack of configuration on that server. I can use here as a primary source in order to improve the security. If I click on software inventory, as the name suggests, I can see what are the softwares running on that device and other information as well. The last one, if I click on missing KBs, I believe I have installed all the relevant updates on that server. Everything looks good. Anyway, I'm really delighted and happy with the results so far from the migration on my server 2016. If I click on devices, now let's have a quick look on my Windows 10 device. If I click in there and then I'm looking for my Windows 10 23, yeah, that was the one I onboarded. And then same story, if I go down, I can see, yeah, a small difference here. There was a quick scan, I have a schedule, and it was completed. And then I can see the latest, the security intelligence, engine, platform as well. And very important here, just to double check, the AV mode is running as active on that device as well. If I click on alerts, same story, so far good news, no major things happening on that device, Windows 10. Timeline, just want to double check all the telemetry has been synced. And yeah, there you go, all the information is here. If I click on security recommendations, same story, I should see a quite good list in here in terms of the improvements I really should do to bring this device to a better position when it comes to security. All the recommendations are here. Same story, if I click on software inventory, whatever I have installed or whatever is running on that device in this Windows 10 23 is here, the full list and so on. Missing KB, I believe I'm sorted for the moment, but just to double check. Yeah, there you go, no missing, no big thing in there. Anyway, this is what I want to share after a bit of work in terms of doing the migration from a third-party AV into Defender for Endpoint. Now the final result is here. The Defender for Endpoint is running, is fully updated, is running as active, and this is what I really wanted. Anyway, this is what I wanted to share on this module, migration from a third-party solution. I hope now you have a much better understanding about the whole process. If you enjoyed this video, please give a quick like, subscribe my channel, follow me on LinkedIn, and see you on the next module. Thanks for watching.